Let's consider how to graph a line if we're given 2 points that the line goes through. For instance, find an equation for the line that goes through the points 4, 2, and 6, 5. Remember that whenever we're going to graph a line, we should always consider putting it in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. When we try to find an equation of a line, we should always begin by writing the slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And we should always list down below the two variables that we need to find. We need to find a slope, which is m, and a y-intercept, which is b. We should always begin by looking at the problem for any information that may be already given to us. Remember that m stands for slope, so look at the problem to see if it tells you what the slope is. In this case, it does not. Secondly, we need to find a y-intercept. You should look at the problem to see if you have a y-intercept. Again, that is not given to us. So in this problem, we need to find both the slope and the y-intercept before we can put this in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope is rise over run, and we can find a slope by using the slope formula. Remember that the slope formula is the difference in the y's over the difference in the x's, because it's a change in y over a change in x, and we represent change with subtraction. So this is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You should write the points off to the side and label them so that you know what kinds of variables you're dealing with. You know that the 4 is an x and the 2 is a y. And you know that the 6 is an x and the 5 is a y. We need an x1 and a y1 and an x2 and a y2. So since both of these two coordinates come from the same point, we can label this x1 and this y1, representing that this is the first point. And over here we can label this x2, y2, because these both come from the second point. Notice now I have all four variables, x1, y1, x2, and y2, that I can now substitute into this equation that will help me find slope. The first variable I need to substitute in for is y2. So I come over here to find what y2 is, and y2 is 5. So I'll write a 5. I need to subtract from that y1. I look over here to find out what y1 is, and it's 2. This will be all over x2 minus x1. So I need to start by finding x2. I come over here and see that x2 is 6. And I subtract from that x1, which in this case is 4. 5 minus 2 is 3. And 6 minus 4 is 2. So my slope is 3/2. Now I have a slope, but I don't have a y-intercept. I can use the strategies that I learned in a previous lesson, if I was given a slope and a point, to find the y-intercept. In this case, I can pick either of my 2 points to use. It doesn't matter which one you pick, you'll get the same result for b. Generally, a good strategy is to pick the point that has the numbers that are the easiest to use in it. If either of your points have a 0 in it, usually those are going to be pretty easy. Same if either of the points have a 1 in it. Those numbers are pretty easy to work with. In this case, they have neither, so you can pick whatever one. I'm going to pick the one with the smaller numbers. So I'm going to work with 4 and 2 to find b. Since I wasn't given b, in order to find b, I need to start by rewriting the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. And then I substitute, just like I did from a previous lesson. I'm going to need a y-coordinate of a point that lies on the line. Remember, I picked this coordinate to use, and my y-coordinate is 2. Equals substitute in my slope, which I found to be 3/2, times an x coordinate. I must be sure to use the x coordinate that goes with the y coordinate that I selected earlier, so I must select 4 here. And remember, I'm multiplying, so I need to put in a 4 in parentheses to show multiplication, plus, and b is the variable that I'm looking for, so I don't substitute anything in for that. Notice that now looking at this equation, there's only one variable, so I can solve for that variable. In order to solve, I use my steps in solving a linear equation. Step 1, simplify both expressions. The left-hand expression is already simplified, but in the right-hand expression, I can do this multiplication. I'm multiplying 3/2 by 4. Since I'm multiplying fractions, I'm going to go ahead and write everything as a fraction. I can write 4 as a fraction by putting it over 1. And since I'm multiplying, these two are factors, and I can cancel factors. I'm noticing that in this denominator I have a 2, and 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. After canceling, I have 3 times 2 in the numerator, which is 6, over 1 times 1 in the denominator, which is 1. But remember, I never have to write 1 in the denominator. 6 over 1 is just 6, so to put this in simpler form, I should not write the denominator of 1. Plus b, and I should bring down the left-hand expression just as it was because I can't simplify it. So after simplifying, I used the rule of multiplying fractions here, which was to multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator, in order to simplify to this equation. 2 equals 6 plus b. To solve for b, I've simplified both expressions. That was step 1 in solving a linear equation. Step 2 is to get your variable to one expression. Well, b is already in the right-hand expression and only in the right-hand expression, so there's nothing that needs to be done there. The third step in solving an equation is to get the variable alone. The first sub-step is to get rid of all terms without your variable in it by adding the opposite. Well, 6 is a term without my variable, so I should get rid of it or move it to the other side by adding the opposite to both expressions. When I do that, I'll be left with 2 plus negative 6 in the left-hand expression, which is negative 4, equals 6 plus negative 6 is 0, which will leave me with just b in the right-hand expression. My variable is alone now in the right-hand expression, so this equation is solved for b. b equals negative 4. So notice, in a problem such as this, where I was given neither a slope nor a y-intercept, I had to do some math to find both of them. In order to find the slope, I had to use the slope formula. In order to find the y-intercept, I had to use the same strategy I used in a previous lesson, using the slope that I already found, plus one of the points that was given to me to substitute and solve for b. Once I have that, I can substitute this into the equation of a line, which is y equals mx plus b. In this case, remember y and x stay just as they are, and in this case, m is 3/2, x stays just as it is, plus b, which is negative 4. So an equation for this line that goes through 4, 2 and 6, 5 is y equals 3/2 x plus negative 4.